Greetings everyone, my name is Greg. In this video, I am going to be doing a response to this video. 10 questions atheists cannot answer. And I can explain very easily why atheists cannot answer these questions, because they have the comments disabled. Like a typical Christian that just wants to preach their bullshit and is too afraid to hear the input from anyone else. They have their comments disabled. This is something that not all Christians do this, but the exceptionally stupid ones do, like Shock of God. Basically, the Christians that I regard as cowards. The thing is, before I get into his questions, there is a little bit of an observation that I want to point out, because this does go in line with my ex, who was black, Princess. If you're a black Christian, you have a really short memory. Because the truth of the matter is, Christianity is a religion that promotes slavery. There can be no question about it. And in the United States, this meme is very accurate. So you're telling me Christianity was forced on blacks during slavery, but you still want me to run around and praise Jesus? It makes no sense. Why in the world would there be anyone that is black that would be a Christian? Why the hell would you do that? Why would you adopt the religion of your slave masters as something for you? That's just putting aside everything else with the character of Jesus and how immoral he is. In and of itself, it should be repulsive. But for those that want to tear down monuments and so forth, why don't they go after Christianity? Because it was literally beaten into black people when they were slaves by the white masters. So why not have black people en masse revolting against Christianity? Why isn't it happening? I just don't understand. But be that as it may, let's begin his stupid questions.
Do you really believe that science is the only answer to all of life's questions?
Actually, yes, I do. Because with science, everything that we know to be true, we can know it is true via the scientific method. Everything. It's a good example. Hopefully I can get my camera to show this without moving it around. These are my Rolex. Yeah, there's only one left in there, but they're Rolex. The scientific method, gravity. We can't see it, but I can guarantee every time I drop this, it doesn't really show on camera, it drops, it falls. You can test it with anything. Anything. You can have the question, will this fall when I let go? And my hypothesis is, yes, that it will fall because of gravity. And then I just let it go and it falls. The thing is, analyze the results, draw a conclusion, it fell. Hypothesis is true, report the results. Boom. Things that are dropped will fall. Okay, basically gravity works. It proves that gravity is real. There is also another way of terming it, is this. It all comes to the same. Everything that we know to be true in reality, we know it is true via the scientific method. So yes, we can look to science to answer all of life's questions. Next question.
If God doesn't exist, why do you care if people worship him?
Who says atheists give a damn if people worship a god? You want to worship Thor? That's your choice. I mean, I don't believe Thor exists, but hey, if you want to worship Thor, that's on you. Or Ra, or Zeus, or even Odin. I don't give two shits. Any of them that you want to worship does not matter to me. What matters is when you start trying to impose them on society and to try and demand that others buy into your bullshit. You do not have that right. Just because you buy into something, just because you believe in this God, does not mean that you get to inflict your bullshit on me just because you believe it. No, you don't have that right. You have the right to believe and worship any fucking thing you want. And I have the right to fucking laugh at you and to basically ridicule you because freedom of speech. You have as much right to believe the wacky bullshit that you want, and I have as much right to laugh at you and to point out where you're being fucking stupid. There's no evidence to believe such exists. So, but if you want to believe it, that's up to you. But when you jackasses try and use your God as the basis for trying to dictate laws and so forth in the United States, that's where we have a problem. There's also a problem with Christians that want to shove their religion into classrooms, into science classrooms. It has no business there. You have your churches, you have your Sunday school bullshit. If you want to teach your children creationism, do that in your Sunday school, in your church. You will not hear one atheist bitch about you teaching whatever wacky bullshit you want in your church. It's when you try bringing that into the classroom that you're going to have a fight. Because you don't have that right. You have the right to believe and worship whatever the fuck you want. But you do not have the right to force it on others. Next question.
Seriously, can nothing create something?
Seriously, do these people stop and fucking think? Because God is nothingness. The idea of a God being behind the universe type of shit. He openly rejects the idea of something coming from nothing. But the God, by definition of what they claim it to be, that being basically a supernatural thing, it is, even if you want to use the term of it being spiritual, whatever the fuck that would be, that is, by definition, something. He had just said, you can't get something from nothing. So, where did God come from? You can't say that God always was, because you don't have any evidence to prove that. You have no, and that is called special pleading. You do not get to make up your own rules for you and have a different measuring stick that you use for your bullshit compared to everything else. It doesn't work that way. To go back to the scientific method, it's not about making up the bullshit a special bit of bullshit for you. No, it's the same method. Be it for your God hypothesis or anything. And God does not get past the hypothesis stage because there's no way to test the experiment. And if you can't test the experiment, you can't draw a conclusion to see if it passes or fails. So it can never reach a theory. The thing is, you can't. Creationism is, by definition, the idea that you can get something from nothing. Because that is the idea that there wasn't anything and then this God, hocus pocus, abracadabra, shazam, brought everything into existence from nothing. It doesn't work. Additionally, no one can give a single representation of what is nothingness. Show me nothingness. You can't do it. Because anything you would show to try and demonstrate nothing is, by definition, something. Everything in our physical representations is something. Thing is, this idea of you can't get something from nothing, that is not in what evolution says that happens at all. That's what creationism declares. Next.
If you've never been to the ends of the earth, if you've never been to every planet, if you've never been to every part of the universe, how do you know that God doesn't exist?
The reason I know I can say God doesn't exist is no evidence. There is absolutely no evidence to support the hypothesis that a God exists. Until there is evidence to support the hypothesis that a God exists, I will maintain my position that no God exists. The thing is, here is a quote from a woman. I don't know who this woman is, but if there is no God, or no evidence of a God, and certainly no evidence of a very morally engaged God, then whatever has to be done by us. Don't know who she is, but I agree with her. The thing is, there's no evidence to support the idea that a God exists. There's also no evidence to support the idea that Bigfoot exists, or the Loch Ness Monster, or pixies, dwarves, elves, invisible magical pink monkeys coming out of your ass, and on and on and on. To say you have to go all through and be everywhere in the universe to know that these things don't exist, that's just stupid. Until there is evidence to support the idea that such exist, it is reasonable to say, I do not believe they exist, or there is no whatnot, because there is no evidence to support that whatnot exists, be it a God, be it aliens, be it whatever. Until you have evidence that what you're claiming exists, someone can say it doesn't exist because there's no evidence. If it would exist, then where's the evidence that it exists? I don't believe something just because you say it. It takes evidence. Next.
What is the origin of life?
That is actually, with our planet, the overwhelming hypothesis at the moment is that the origin of life, that life originated with an asteroid pretty much colliding with the Earth and depositing the base chemicals that became the building blocks of life. And where that came from was exploding stars. Neil deGrasse Tyson had said very well that the elements that make up the human body come from exploding stars. So forget Jesus dying for you. Stars exploded so you can live. Next.
If humans are animals, then where does our sense of justice, where does our sense of morality, where does our sense of what's right and what's wrong come from?
This is so easy to answer. First of all, if you actually think that you need a cosmic overlord threatening to torture you if you do not behave a certain way, that's not moral. That at most is being a suck-up. You cannot act like you have morals when the only reason you're not going around doing nasty shit is you're afraid of being hurt by some cosmic overlord. Thing is, you might have noticed I have other tabs at the top here. And there's a reason for that. This is one that is a very interesting... It's a short video. I'm going to play all of it because I want you to see this. Because this will answer his question of where does morality come from? Because what we have, monkey cooperation and fairness.
A pot of hazelnuts and the flint that's needed to open the lid. You need both and a nut, but they're separated by a see-through barrier. Vulcan has the rock, but can't reach the nuts. Virgil has the nuts, but knows he can't eat them without a rock. Vulcan quickly offers the tool. He must hope Virgil is smart enough to open the lid and fair enough to cut him in on the spoils. Virgil is struggling. He doesn't have his friend's skill. And Vulcan is getting impatient. The flint is finally through the lid, but can Virgil be trusted to share the nuts?
Now, one of the things before we, if going by the Christian idea would be accurate, you would have this one monkey, it would have the opportunity to take and hoard all of the nuts. Now, I'm counting 4 in there plus the one he pulled out would make 5.
With Vulcan out of reach, it must be tempting to take the lot.
Now, I couldn't count exactly how many, but it looked like that there would have been 5. There might have been 6. I don't know.
Three nuts, a fair share. Vulcan and Virgil have used teamwork to beat the system. But can
And the thing is, the aspect of that even if there were only 5, and that one that got into it gave 3, he gave more than he got. Which, it's just an interesting aspect there, that if there were only 5, that the one basically gave away more than he got. Would be an interesting thing to note. I don't know. But as far as where morality and fairness come from, as that video shows, these things are natural. They're part of life itself. I would say all animals that have reached, in a sense, a degree of evolution like we have, or even close to where we are, would have a sense of fairness and so forth. I don't know if the same has been observed in dogs, cats, so forth, but it would be an interesting thing to find out. My hypothesis is that they would have that as well. But it doesn't need a God. The idea that it would indicates to me someone that has no morals, has no moral center of their own.
If you were given irrefutable evidence that the God of the Bible is real, would you become a Christian?
No. Because of the way he phrased that. And I'm going to back this up just a little bit so you can hear exactly how he phrased that.
Evidence that the God of the Bible is real, would you become a Christian?
No, everyone. He said, the God of the Bible. The God of this shit. The God of this shit is not Christian. It would cause me, if there would be unequivocal evidence that the God of the Bible is real, I would have to consider Judaism. I would have to. However, I would still oppose it because there are the things in Judaism that the God does I don't agree with. And just because something exists is not sufficient reason to bow and scrape before it. Because I would ask him, we know Kim Jong-un exists. We know Hitler existed. We know Stalin existed. Are you going to go along with their program and what they were about just because we know they existed? I would tend to say if you would, just because they exist, you're an immoral bastard. You have no moral center. Existence doesn't equal goodness. But Christianity is nothing short of the golden calf of the Exodus. When Moses went up on Mount Sinai to get the 10 Commandments and came down and saw people worshiping a golden calf, that is exactly what Christianity is. Jesus is the golden calf. That is what has happened. Because he sure as shit was not a god. And this is something that I can show with the Bible. Numbers 23:19. God is not a man that he should lie, neither the son of man that he should repent. We're just going to put aside for the time being the fact that in the Bible it is written that God has both lied and repented. He sent a lying spirit and repented multiple times. We're going to ignore that for the time being, just because, well, that's a bit of a contradiction that the Bible's full of. The thing is, if this God is not a man or son of a man, there is major question as to what this God is. But one thing we can know beyond a shadow of a doubt, what this God is not, is Jesus. So the aspect of if you had evidence of God, would you become a Christian? No. But Judaism would be one you would seriously have to consider. There is also the fact, and I find this interesting, not so much that I am, to use the term, buying into it, but it is part of, apparently, the fabric of the universe, is what is termed sacred geometry. These geometric symbols show up naturally, and it's something that I find intriguing. And one of the things that does appear in these geometric shapes is the Jewish star. It's interesting. I wouldn't say that it proves Judaism, but it is definitely interesting. Because in these geometric shapes as well, we also see the pyramid, as well as the pentagram. But what we do not see in any of them is a cross. So, I don't think it's not evidence of, to use the term, a god or any shit like that. But even if there is something behind sacred geometry, it doesn't point to Christianity. The thing is, no matter what, with Christianity, if the God of the Old Testament, this shit, is real, Christianity is wrong. It would be Judaism that is right. If the God of this shit is not real, Christianity is wrong. Either way, Christianity is wrong. Not to mention, Christianity is immoral. The idea that you can have whatever sins you did, whatever you do to somebody else, can be washed away just because you say you think a Jesus died. The raped woman remains raped. The molested child remains molested. The murdered person remains dead. Why should the person that caused those things be able to get oh, you're forgiven because you think the right thing? This is offensive. This is offensive on all levels. To me, only somebody that has absolutely no moral center would go along with this shit. Next.
God of the Bible is real. Would you become a Christian?
No.
Tell me something. If evolution is real, and if evolution is really happening, how come there are no transitional forms that we can observe?
There are. You're looking at one. Hi, I'm a transitional form, and I have a prop to prove it. You guys know what this is? This is called milk. And you may be wondering, how is milk going to prove I'm a transitional form? And let me just jump up here and kill the camera for a bit. Here in the United States, 90% of adults can drink milk. But around 75% of the world's adults can't. They're lactose intolerant. Excuse me. So when did some of our ancestors gain the ability to drink milk as adults? Certainly it isn't the norm, which means that at some point in our past, the ability to drink milk as adults must have arisen. One idea is that the trait has always been in some populations, and so these populations developed dairy industries. Another idea is that there were always a few folks who kept making lactase, but when people began drinking milk, these people had a huge advantage and outbred their lactose intolerant neighbors. Soon, most people in these populations were lactase persistent. And the truth of the matter is, in the United States, 90% of us can drink milk. And as you can see, this is basically my second attempt at this video. I had forgotten a few things and wanted to correct, so I'm doing it over. But drinking milk is clear evidence of transitioning. We weren't always able to do it. There is also going to be a website in the description bar below, along with the video for the Monkey Cooperation of Milk and Modern Man, the rise of adult milk drinking. And this article will go into a lot more detail on the aspect of people, adults, being able to drink milk. And it's something that I would say, if you're interested, definitely check it out. But just in case you might have thought that first was a fluke, milk, I love it. But also, just to show you, in my refrigerator back here, I have a half gallon of chocolate milk. I love my chocolate milk. And yes, that makes me a transitional form. Next.
Do you live according to what you believe, or do you live your life according to what you lack in belief?
Alright, this is equally as dumb, because the way everybody, at least for me, I live my life based on evidence. Keep calm, demand evidence. I don't go by, faith is not a pathway to truth. So one cannot live their life based on that bullshit. However, I live my life based on what I know, what I can prove, not based on flights of fancy. So the idea of, because if you base your life and live your life on the premise that there is some kind of afterlife and some kind of God, then really you are cheating yourself and cheating your life. You're not living your life to the fullest of what you could, because you're afraid of some cosmic overlord. By the same token, if the only reason you're not going out and hurting people is because you're afraid of some cosmic overlord, you're not moral, you're an ass. It's simply, you do not get to say you're moral because you declare it, if everything in your character and everything that you otherwise mouth is that you have to have some cosmic overlord threatening to shove hot pokers up your ass for you to not do nasty shit. This just makes no sense. It goes against everything we see with primates. And if monkeys can behave better than you, what does that say about you? But next question.
If God doesn't exist and the Christian dies, the Christian loses nothing.
Bullshit!
But if God does exist and you die as an atheist, do you not lose more? Will you not lose your soul?
No. And this is where, before I get into, because what this is also getting into is Pascal's stupid wager. And I will show you this quick, because I made this to illustrate what I'm getting at. Because this is just the atheism and the Abrahamic religions. This dumbass wants to try and act like it's just atheism or Christianity. That's not even the case with the Abrahamic religions. Because there's Judaism, there's Islam, And there are some Christians, I've seen them in my videos, that say Catholicism, Catholics aren't Christians. All right, fine, we'll have them separate as well. But in some of the other pictures that I had found, it listed Judaism as the hell as well. And I wanted to do a version of my own because it's inaccurate to apply to Judaism hell in the same manner as Christianity and Islam and Catholicism, because Jews don't believe in a fiery hell. The aspect of hell in the Old Testament is Sheol, or the grave. That's why I have a grave in there, because that's what it would be for Judaism. You would be the grave. Now, it could also be argued that for atheists, it would also be basically when you die, the grave. That's where you're, pretty much, that's where you're going. But the aspect of nothing in the sense of what you have with regard to an afterlife, there is nothing. But the interviews that I've done with Mark Powers, he had said, basically, there is no threat with Judaism. It just doesn't exist. But you might have noticed I have Ruach down here because there is the aspect, and I'll just pull up this real quick because this has where the word soul is. And I want you to see this and really let this sink in. The word soul, as you can see right here, it is Hebrew 5315. Now you would see it is from 5314. We'll get to that. First, it's nephesh, and it is defined as properly a breathing creature that is animal. And all you would see pretty much throughout this is pretty much aspects of a body, a living entity, a living person, mortality. I mean, even it's right frickin' there, mortality. But you may be wondering, okay, it says it's from 5314. 5314, which is a slightly different Hebrew word, means to breathe. Passively, to be breathed upon. Refreshed, as if by the current of air. So, either way, a breathing creature that is animal, that's me. So, by this definition of soul, I am a soul. You are a soul. As long as you are breathing, you are a soul. Which can also go along the lines of where you might have heard the phrase, I haven't seen a soul, or no soul's been in here for so long. People are not talking about ghosts or when they're saying, I haven't seen a soul. They're talking about people. Now, the aspect of spirit, because this is another one that, and I'm going to just switch to a slightly different, because Genesis 6:4, or wait a minute, not 6:4, 6:2, I think. It helps if I wouldn't have it on. This is dealing with, no, it's actually 6:3. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man. And this is something I find interesting. For that he also is flesh. What was this God? Really, what was this God? Because it makes me wonder things like this. Is this God an alien? It's certainly not Jesus. But this does fly in the face of the God is not a man or a son of a man. But if he also is flesh, what the fuck are we dealing with? It could be that just these ancient people didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. But the word spirit is wind, by resemblance, breath. And that is sensible or even violent exhalation. Figuratively, life. People, spirit and soul are both related to a living person. There is absolutely no reason to believe that any of this shit would have any type of woo-woo supernatural bullshit. So, the aspect of Pascal's wager, and I will, since that was his last question, I will break this down regarding Pascal's wager and why that utterly fails. Beyond the fact that, as I had pointed out in my video, Welcome to Hell, what is talked about in Jeremiah 32:35 is the Valley of the Son of Hinnom, which is actually was a place of child sacrifice, but that is nothing now. It's now a grassy field that you could go to. So in that, it's not what Christians make it out to be. Back during the time of this Jesus, it would have been basically a place where criminals and dead bodies were thrown as a way of disposing of them. The thing is, you do not have any evidence. There's no evidence of a hell type of thing. And even worse than that, if you're trying to say this hell is spiritual, then it can't be fire. This fire and brimstone falls apart if you're trying to say it is spiritual. If you're trying to say it is physical, then it doesn't matter, because after someone is dead, the physical brain is dead, the central nervous system is dead, their body is dead. It won't physically matter. There is no reason to believe that there would be a physical existence when everything these Christians are talking about and basing their life on is this spiritual bullshit. That this is temporal and so forth, and it's going to die. Okay, fine. But your hell that you're trying to carrot and stick people with in order to threaten them into buying into your stupid bullshit, your threat is physical. It doesn't work. But also, Christopher Hitchens did a very good answer to the question of Pascal's wager, because it is a bit of hucksterism if you really get down to it. Because what you have is the Christian that is really saying, oh, come on, just lie a little. Like this clown saying, oh, what? Just go ahead, lie a little. You'll be all right. Well, you better hope this inspired walk. You better hope, number one, that the God that you're wagering on isn't all-knowing. Because if it is all-knowing, it will see right through your attempted deception. Also, if you're going to try and say that you're going and following Jesus, and yet you're talking about the God of the Bible, you're going to piss it off. Because Jesus is not the God of the Bible. The God of the Bible is an insecure fucking bastard. You really need to know which God you're saying exists, which God you're saying you're following. Because what you've made out is a human into a God. You haven't actually, you don't actually believe in the God of the Bible. Let's be clear on that. What you're believing in is the fairy tale of Christianity. And that is something that I really want to hammer on and really want to point out. Because if you're trying to say you're wagering, then you're making a bet. You're buying a lottery ticket. And it's even worse than the aspect of a lottery ticket type of thing, because you don't just live your life. This is not just a matter of after you're dead. Because you make choices in your life based on what you believe. I agree with that as well. I base my choices on the evidence at hand. A Christian like you would be basing your choices and your decisions on these fairy tales and fables that you believe on faith. Well, when it comes out that you're wrong, you've wasted your life. The aspect of you haven't lost anything, you've lost a great deal. You have based everything you're doing on this idea that you can mouth words and magically wash away everything you've done. Which is basically saying to anyone you've hurt, fuck you, I think Jesus died, so what I did to you, fuck you, it doesn't matter. I go to heaven, you go to hell. That is immoral. If a God would exist and would be a figure of morality, it would have to be offended at Christianity by sheer principle. It would have to be fucking outraged. Even if it would not be the God of the Bible, but some other thing. The idea that you can just mouth words and have what you did to others washed away is offensive. And it's even more offensive because you're not just trying to trick humans with this Pascal's wager. You're trying to trick and deceive a God. Think about the hubris that is behind Pascal's wager. It is wagering that you, the human, are smarter than the God. That you can outmaneuver the God. How arrogant of you. I don't believe a God exists, but I would not be as arrogant as you are in saying that I think I can trick a God into thinking something. Ha ha ha. You're a wicked bastard. You're wanting to play a con game on a deity. Fucker. Christians that are like this, you better hope to everything that atheists are right. That everything I have found in my research is right on the money. Because otherwise, if it is like you guys try and claim, you're fucked. Point blank, you're fucked. If it's the God of the Bible, you are FUCKEDAGAIN, fucked again. Because you're worshiping a golden calf. The God got pissed off back in the Old Testament and killed thousands for worshiping a false god. What would it do to you? You really want to play this, Christians? You better know what you're playing with. I've done my research on this. I've done my homework. The truth of the matter is, Christianity, no matter how you slice it, is wrong. Feel free to leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. Later, people.